All right. It says you're live. I must be live. What's up, everybody? Um, this is very new for me. I recently decided to do more lives, and I'm still playing around with Instagram Live, or I guess IG Live and YouTube Live. It's a breakthrough for me to be in front of the camera again because I trained as an actor first. I then became a filmmaker. Um, I now have a project, ADHD is Over, that still utilizes, obviously, being in front of the camera, being behind it, writing, directing, editing. Although my 13-year-old son has been really great at, wanting to help me create content and shoot some stuff and edit it. But for me, um, I've been hiding, behind the camera. And I think it's just a personal transformation that gradually happened, that now I'm at a point where like I'm done hiding. I have a lot to say about this topic. I have done a lot of research. I've lived a lot of life. I'm 55. You know, if I make it to 110, then I consider this my midlife crisis. Although it's not a crisis as in like I got to go out and buy a convertible. I've done that before in my life. That didn't work. It's a chrysalis more of like I am slowly coming back to myself. People always say like, "Oh, you got to find yourself." In a way, that's true because when we go within, we are essentially during that process chipping away, like um, you know, Michelangelo, right? Like statue of David, chipping away what's not David, meaning I'm chipping away what's not Roman. And I wanted to do a live about a specific topic, although most of my lives are going to just go in and out of a lot of the research that I've collected on ADHD. But I wanted this topic to be about slowing down in life and slowing down, essentially allowing me or anyone who's slowing down to realize which parts of ourselves, physical, spiritual, mental, are not who we are, have been put there or installed or created by myself to play a character, essentially to be a persona, right? Which part of me is a persona? Hey, Julius, mountain biker, what up? Thanks for stopping by. Appreciate that. This is really a talk about life, but through the lens of ADHD and slowing down. If you're new and if you don't know anything about ADHD is Over, it's a podcast. It's a documentary in the making. It's coming out in 3 weeks. Here's a physical copy. It's called ADHD is Over. But it's really, it's made me aware of what it takes to heal in general, not just from ADHD. And I hate to use the word heal, although I do believe that, all of us are healers. When we're healing, we're being healers when we're healing ourselves, right? But really, it's about rewiring our brains in the case of ADHD. It's about slowing down and actually doing romantic relationships right. Staring in the face of what is the cause of infidelity, right? What is the cause of addiction? All these things, in my opinion, they're all labels, right? People always say, once a cheater, always a cheater. Not true. It's just like someone saying, oh, ADHD is a condition you have for life. Not true. It's really all about slowing down, becoming more aware of who we are. And it's a big concept, right? Because I can say, oh, who am I and how am I going to find out who I am? Well, it's by chipping away who you're not. Stay away from those churn, strange pubes. What up? I'm going to try to interpret your texts as best as I can. Sometimes I can't, or I'm not with it, but it's all good. I'm always open to conversation. But really, it's about chipping away who you're not. And you can't do that unless you slow down, because we live in such a fast-paced world. Most of us are born into what I call the fast track of this world. In general, children or humans with ADHD are reacting to the stressors in the environment since in vitro throughout childhood and adulthood. Therefore, if we're born into a very fast paced, grindy kind of go, 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 make a lot of money, go down the Ivy League track, and you become happy kind of philosophy, mentality that our society has, right? That causes a lot of sensitive people, children, humans, and I mean sensitive in a positive way. You can take in more through your senses, right? Now we can overload, I agree, but sensitive people are more stressed when the environment is stressful, right? Their nervous system is more sensitive. They take in more information. So naturally, young children act out like charades, right? They can't describe it in words, but they're acting out. So we say, oh, that child is acting out. They got ADHD, we got to put them on medication. Well, that sort of cycle of labeling and diagnosing and writing off people because their brains are broken used to be called minimal brain disorder, MBD, before it was ADHD, and other names. You can look that up. But what we're not realizing is that we're human beings and we're stressed out by this chaotic world, and we don't know how to cope with it. So one way to cope with it, thank you for the hearts and hello, Sans. Appreciate you guys. Coping with the world in a way, or not being able to cope with the present moment if it's too stressful or unsafe. And those are the two big creators of what we call mental disorders in the case of ADHD. It's like being stressed and, in a way, feeling unsafe. So when we feel that as a young being, we don't want to be here now because it's threatening or boring or whatever. We want to be over there where the excitement is happening. And so then we wire our brain, or not even we wire, it's so unconscious as a little human. The brain gets wired in a certain way. It almost becomes this addiction to check out. Like, I'd rather be over there. It's a coping mechanism. Dr. Gabor Mate, who I've interviewed several times, says that very, very convincingly. And he's been in the field for a long time. He's a physician. He's written books on ADHD, addiction. All right, so I'm going to read this here by Boy. Bro, I have my first ADHD medication appointment in 2 weeks. Late diagnosed at 25, and I just got diagnosed with a specific version of ADHD. How does your brain feel after taking meds? Great question. Thanks for asking. By the way, I highly recommend the book. I'm not here to peddle my book, but I just wrote this. This is 10 years of research, not a thick book. It's called ADHD is Over. It'll be out in about 3 weeks. A lot of that information's in there that I talk about. But to answer your question, first of all, I don't know how you will feel. I tried Ritalin, Adderall, Vyvanse. I tried the medications for the documentary. I actually was never diagnosed with ADHD, but I had it done for the documentary. I was able to get diagnosed. It was a weird online diagnosis. And when I said, well, are these meds safe? The therapist on Zoom said, oh, don't worry about it. The Kennedys took it. And I was like, oh, okay. That's good to know. But anyway, so they're not safe and effective. They're some safe for a lot of people. They're somewhat effective. I will just say that based on lots of research. But if you're going to take ADHD medications, you're going down a slippery slope. I'm not anti-medication, by the way. I think Western medicine, which ADHD diagnosis qualifies as, is good for emergencies. If it's not an emergency in your life, like a true emergency, I would vote against it. But if you're gonna, it says you just got diagnosed and you're gonna take meds, did you say in 2 weeks? Medication appointment in 2 weeks. If you haven't taken it yet, I would first of all ask your provider clearly to spell out the benefits, but also the dangers and the side effects, right? You can obviously research that. How you're going to feel, I don't know what you're taking. I took Adderall, Ritalin, Vyvanse, different medications. Most of the time I felt a bit not like myself. I know that sounds very general. I felt my head was kind of buzzing. I don't know if you've ever drink 4 espresso shots in the morning on an empty stomach. And I was just, very hyper. My nervous system was vibrating. I was very focused on doing like I was writing something and I was editing the shit out of it. Literally, it was like I just kept like I became really good at like being so hyper focused and so in other words, it will focus you in that way, but it also does that to anyone taking ADHD medication, not just people with ADHD. There's actually studies that show it's not an ADHD medication. It does that to any brain or system. ADHD people, in a way, react differently to it, but that sort of hyper focus and that sometimes anxiety. I had sleepless nights. My appetite was wacky. My ex-wife at the time said I was kind of like a jerk. I was very like brash with her, and I was hard to talk to during that time. So it depends how you're going to feel. Some people um, say, "Yeah, I'm fine. I take it. I'm okay." But a lot of people have reported a lot of side effects, and then you try different medications, different doses. So you'll have to play around with it. I would say if you can go with the lowest dose and really just let that sink in for a while and see how your symptoms, as they call them, symptoms, your behavior changes, right? Let's see. Mama says voting leads to dictatorships. Strange Pubes is just letting it out. I love it. Yeah, good luck with that, boy. Keep an eye on it and know that they're really hard to get off of in the future. And if you take it long term, because it creates a dependency, meaning you will feel, in a sense, this sort of fake sense of better and more productive. And if you then don't take it, you may feel less than. And so it just got to kind of, yeah, it's a tightrope. Getting back to slowing down in life, I will just say that one thing I've learned, 55 years on this planet, is I've essentially, and I use these words wisely, I don't blame myself for it, I've done the work, but I've wrecked 2 marriages. I've lost a lot of money. This is because I was going fast. I was in my addiction mode. I had a lot of infidelity. I cheated. I was just a very rambunctious knucklehead going fast. And yeah, one day I'll fix it, right? And now I'm in this sort of repair phase with my ex, with finances, with my kids and all that stuff. And it's going really well. I'm just really grateful and fortunate that it's going well for me. But I had to slow the fuck down. So I'm here to say, when you slow down, you get more aware. You can have gratitude for simple things like a flower, like the smell of a flower, like bees, like the sunset, right? Um, you can feel more, you'll feel more connected to people, because when we slow down, we give people a chance for us to be with them and them be with us, right? I've seen new things in life where I'm like, that's always been there, but why didn't I see that? Or why didn't I get that? So slowing down is in essence for me is the medicine for ADHD. Now that's a big statement, right? Some people will be like, no, medication is the thing, or you can't dissolve ADHD symptoms. Yes, you can. I will say any brain into old age can be rewired. Neuroscience has many studies that show that clearly. It's common knowledge now. You can rewire your brain into old age. So how come these so-called ADHD experts tell parents, in the case of their children, that this is a lifelong condition? It's not. It's a lifelong condition if you don't ever do the deeper work. Yes. And then it's easier to sell medication because, well, if it's lifelong, and don't worry, no deep work is going to help it, only medication and some therapy. And therapy is great, by the way. But medication always shows up as the first line of defense. Literally the first, if you go to CHAD, Children and Adults of ADHD, in their often in their mission statements, and there was a statement recently that they posted about some article a guy wrote in the New York Times Magazine that was brilliant. It said, have we been thinking about ADHD all wrong? Amazing article if you haven't read it. They criticized him, CHAD criticized him, and in the statement they said that medication as a solution, it came up as the first item mentioned, right? That's not unintentional. So I always say, look, we can rewire our brain, but what does it take? Well, how do you rewire the brain? Well, it's very simple. If we get to the bottom of it, the cause of why we feel the need to check out while we can't be present in this moment, if we get to the original cause that had us feel unsafe or bored, uninterested, whatever that is, it's usually a feeling of unsafety. If I had to actually sum up this movement of ADHD over in one word, and somebody would say, like, what's the cause of ADHD? I would bet everything I have on the word unsafety. Unsafety in someone's life, whether it's in vitro, where a young organism, a baby that's growing, or after birth or during childhood, felt an extreme sense of unsafety. And it's different for every child. Some children, doesn't bother them. They have some event happens, they're fine, relatively fine. Another child, same event, total trauma, total system shut down, unsafe, checking out, whatever they come up with as a defense mechanism, as a sentencing themselves for life as an adult, that's going to become a mental disorder or a insecurity or anxiety or whatever gets created, right, in that moment by this child, and every child is different. That's what causes a lot of those mental disorders. And I'm here to say, we don't have to really spend a lot of time. I do, because of my movement. I want to make a point. This, by the way, the subtitle of the book is called "The Struggle is Real, the Label is Not," because I want people to know, like, I know things I do. I have behavior that I struggle with in life that creates friction between me and the environment, me and a job, me and a relationship, me and procrastination, right? All that stuff. That's real. The label's made up. There's no arguing about that. The labels are voted on by 8 to 15 psychiatrists at these meetings when the APA, the American Psychological Association, or Psychiatry Association, votes on which disorder and what symptoms should be in the DSM, the Diagnostic Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, right? So it's voted on. So it's not real in essence, meaning we could change the name, we could outvote it, we can get rid of it. But the struggles that we're experiencing as humans, you, me, other people who say they have this thing called ADHD, the struggle is real. I want you to be clear about that. I'm never denying the struggle isn't real. Like, oh, you don't have anything, you're just making it up, you're just lazy. No. That stuff, that's the true stigmatization. By the way, I'm a big believer that you cannot be stigmatized by anyone unless you stigmatize yourself first, unless you take on a disempowering label that comes already with lots of stigma stuff. You will feel stigmatized because you now are triggered because you've made ADHD your identity. So if think about ADHD, you react as if they are criticizing you, the person. So I never criticize people for who they are. I always say, hey, are you open to the following statements? ADHD is not a real medical disorder. You can't have ADHD. It's not a thing in your brain. The struggle is real. The label is not. The label was made up. That can be changed or made away with, right? So if you're open for that kind of dialogue, then you'd love the podcast, ADHD is Over, and definitely would love my book. And hopefully the movie will be done in the next year. It's been a labor of love. But let's go back to slowing down. Why am I such a big proponent suddenly of slowing down? Look around the world. We need it. The entire world needs to slow down. Really. Like, if we don't slow down, and of course it starts with the individual, right? Gandhi's quote, be the change you want to see in the world. If we don't slow down anytime soon, I mean, it's a train wreck. We're really going to get it. And that's okay too. That's a lesson that supposedly we've all manifested collectively, right? That we need some kind of wake-up call so that we can slow down and we can drop into ourselves. We can be aware. We can feel the gratitude. We can connect with source, God, universe, whatever you call it, right? So I just wanted to share that. For what it's worth, I will share many more times about this, about all of it, about the ADHD, what I call the half-truths, right? There's 5 half-truths in my book, ADHD is Over, that I go into. I'm not going to go into all of them right now, but one of them I already mentioned. ADHD is not a life sentence. It's not a lifelong condition. Just like once a cheater, always a cheater, that's not true. Those things can be rewired. Behaviors can be changed, right? The other one is that ADHD is genetic. I'm not going to go too far into it. It's not genetic. It's a half truth because yes, genes are involved, but there's no ADHD gene, by the way, no isolated or a group of ADHD genes. Much like most people don't know, there's no ADHD, or I'm sorry, there's no gene for alcoholism. These disorders or diseases are environmentally, meaning epigenetics has proven that genes can be turned on or off through the influence of the environment, meaning we have power, we have some control over our environment to a degree. And so things like behaviors like ADHD are more predetermined if your father had it, not because of the gene, because there is no gene handed down, but because there's certain sensitivity gene. There's a sensitivity gene that I won't go into details. You can look this up, but that is affected or turned on through the environment. So if your environment is stressful because your dad is stressed and mom is stressed and there's addiction or alcoholism or there's been abuse and stuff like that, that energy in the environment can then cause somebody to behave in a way that we would label as ADHD. So again, ADHD is not genetic the way it's presented to parents, as in like, oh, it's predetermined. There's nothing you can do. Your kid has it. Nothing you can do. Lifelong sentence. What can you do? Manage it. So all you can do is symptoms management, right? That's what Western medicine is so great at selling. Well, manage your symptoms for life. You just have to pay for it. This is the medication, right? That whole system. Nothing against Western medicine. For emergencies, Western medicine is great. We've had lots of great things. Thank you, Western medicine, from my heart, for sure. But the way we're using it is like a daily, like a, we're telling people, oh, you have to manage this symptom. If not, you're going to wreck your life. You're going to become a drug addict, go to jail. That's what parents are told when that's what we were told when my 7-year-old was said to have ADHD. We were told that, oh, unless you medicate him, he will be a drug using convict and never be a productive member in society. And I was like, oh shit. Now, thank God I trusted, and my ex as well, our intuition. And we never medicated him. And he's now 16 years old. He's currently doing a high school year in Ecuador, where his mom is from. He's had a job before he left. He made money. He was doing really well in academically fairly rigorous schools. He was getting A's and B's. He was never medicated. He's not hyperactive anymore. He's not impulsive anymore. I asked his 13-year-old brother the other day. I said, look at these symptoms that Kai was, my oldest is named Kai, that Kai was set to have at 7 years old. Is that still him? And he's like, nope. And again, we were told, like thousands, millions of parents, that unless we medicate our child, they will be delinquent drug users or go to jail and never be a productive member of society. That's bullshit. Don't listen to that. Don't listen to that. It's not the ADHD that causes a child to become a drug user or go to jail. And it's not medicine or medication, like ADHD medication, that's just going to fix that or heal that. I always say, if you give your child medication for ADHD, what you're doing is you're putting a really long Band-Aid on a wound that requires deeper healing. So in other words, when your child then becomes an adult, at some point, they will still have to do the deeper healing. You can't fix that with medication. It is a Band-Aid. And as you and I know, you don't want to leave a Band-Aid on a pretty bad wound for too long. You can put it on there temporarily, right? As a metaphor. That's fine if you want to use medication as a Band-Aid, as a temporary relief in life so you can function, go to your jobs, and your child can finish a school year, whatever. That's okay. But unfortunately, most parents get complacent and comfortable and leave their children on ADHD medication for years, pushing down the wrong track, the Ivy League, get a big career, make a lot of money, you'll be happy track that not everybody's cut out for. Not every child is aligned with that. But we're pushing them all, not all, but lots of them get pushed down that track. So of course you're going to look for medication or for things that support that fast track further, that keep your child on track with that speed. It's funny that we call it speed when in fact medications like Adderall are like speed. By the way, a lot of people don't believe me, but go to the DEA website and look up Schedule II drugs and you'll be surprised to find Adderall and Ritalin alongside of cocaine and meth in the same list of highly addictive drugs. It's not an accident. The truth is right there. It's only a matter of how much you give someone. And if you give this to a 6-year-old, you're really playing Russian roulette, not a judgment. It's Russian roulette because there's a percentage, there's a 50-50 chance your child could have some serious consequences, some side effects, right? And millions do, really do. That's often hidden by our experts who say, oh no, these are safe and effective. No, they're not. They're not. They're somewhat safe for some people, but there's a lot of side effects for many, So at least be honest so we can have, so that's what I go into in my book, the 5 half-truths. Another one I'll just skim is the chemical imbalance theory that was also debunked, that never existed. That was a marketing slogan from a pharmaceutical company that ended up becoming almost like a scientific theory or a medical theory. There's no, it has no validity to it. It's been debunked over and over. And I also cover that in my book. So anyway, I know that's a lot. If you're someone diagnosed, or you have struggles in life, which we all have different struggles. I certainly struggle with certain behaviors that you could, label as a symptom of ADHD. My point of this whole movement is like, don't allow a label to define who you are, but literally don't take on labels. Like, we never labeled our son. Like, the reason why we call it ADHD is over, it was inspired by War is Over by John Lennon and Yoko Ono, by their campaign they did back in the 60s. But really, what it means for us, or what it meant for us as a family, is that we decided it's over. There is no label. ADHD is over for our son. Like, it was over the moment I decided, like, we're not medicating him. He doesn't have a disorder. His brain's not broken. It's over, right? You get to declare that. No one can tell you, like, well, that's not right, or that's dangerous, or whatever. No, he's my son. I can decide, what happens with my son. As a 7-year-old, I'm not going to medicate him with Schedule II drugs. I'm not going to label him with a disempowering label. It is a disempowering label. I've had this argument many times with people who don't want to hear what I have to say about it, because really all I'm saying is, like, there's a negative connotation, and not because people say, oh, it's because of the stigmatization. No, the word disorder is a negative connotation. So I just wanted to say that. But that's enough for today. If you've been watching, thank you guys. I always say your attention is your most valuable commodity. So you've given it generously, even if you just came for a minute or a second or whatever. And I appreciate that. And I wish you all the best. And I will be doing more lives around ADHD and life and slowing down. As I say, slow the fuck down, and you will taste life as it's meant to be lived. All right, until next time.